Recording service. All right, we are recording. All right, well, hello everybody and welcome to the December edition of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee meeting. It's nice to see everyone. I hope you had a lot of fun today outside bicycling. And
Yeah,
it was quite the day. If just everybody wouldn't mind throwing your mics on mute as we get started, and then, I'll kind of call on people as we go through. So let's call the meeting to order. It is 6 o'clock, 6:01. So this is the official call to order. And thank you, Jay, once again for sending out the minutes from the Thursday, November 19th regular meeting. I just was reading them over. I did not have any comments, but I'm not sure if anybody else had sent in comments to you. So if you wanted to just kind of let us know.
not any changes, just a couple of comments from Laura about some stylistic things, but for the most part, they're fine, I think. I didn't hear from anyone else, so.
All right, any comments on the minutes? Anyone would like to make a motion to approve them?
Motion to approve.
Linda, motion to approve, seconded?
Seconded.
And your hand is up, so I'm going to say you seconded them. All in favor? All right, I think we're all in favor here. It's a little bit hard to see people, so. All right, so first off, I do want to kick off the meeting with officially welcoming our new member of the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, Sarah Roy. So Sarah, I know you were on the meeting last month, but do you want to take a minute just to introduce yourself to everybody on the group? And then maybe quickly everybody can go around and just say who you are as well to introduce yourself to Sarah for the people that are on the committee. You're on mute, Sarah. There, you're muted. Yep. I'm going to unmute you. I got you.
Sorry.
Okay.
My name is Sarah, and my family and I moved to the Stratfield neighborhood of Fairfield almost 5 years ago. And I have a background in historic preservation and downtown economic development, that sort of thing, but became passionate about traffic and pedestrian and cycle safety issues because of our location. We're on a very busy street, Wilson Street. We're on the corner of Buena Vista and Wilson, and just seeing all the potential to improve our street, in addition to the dangers, just really fired me up and made me way more passionate than I ever expected to be about these issues, and really did a deep dive into researching how to improve these things, both locally and nationally, and just got really excited about it because there's so much we can do to make it better. It's just, taking the steps to make that happen. So I'm excited to be part of this and hopefully do some good stuff with you all for Fairfield.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much and welcome to our committee. Probably just in the interest of time, I'll maybe just introduce, there's the other people that are on the call. We'll have a chance to chat, maybe in person, hopefully, somewhere in the future. But we have Laura, she's the vice chair. I'm the chair, of course. We have Jay Cosgrove, who is our secretary. Linda Locke, she was one of the founding members with Laura and myself of the committee. I see her here. Ann Caddis is here. And I think that's all for the committee. I don't see Mike. I'm here. Oh, you're there? Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm here.
All right, Mike is here. And Karen Sechrist, are you here? So I don't see Karen. This is good for our roll call. Anybody else? Who am I missing? Why am I feel like I'm missing somebody? I think we've got everybody. But anyways, well, welcome to the committee. We're really happy to have you. For those of you who remember, Sarah came with your son, right? That and talked a little bit about the Wilson Street, and that was a great project that we worked on. So hopefully we'll have a lot more of those as well. I do want to, I just put in the minutes. I did send the calendar that we voted on last time to the town clerk, and I think they'll post that. Again, we're going to be online until whenever we get back to normal, but hopefully once that does happen, we'll be back in the second floor conference room. And then we had, over the course of the month, actually, I had a number of requests from members of the public, and I see Judith is here tonight. She was going to mention some things about the Pequot Avenue. I'm not sure, Patrick, are you on the call? Can you hear us? We did have Patrick O'Brien Sevilla. He was going to join us about the Old Post Road. And actually, Ann had sent me some additional information about that area from the residents in that area, which I did not receive when I sent out the minutes. So we'll probably have a little bit of time to hear from them as well. And then I did also put on the Churchill Wilson Fairfield Woods Road, because Sarah had sent me an email about some comments she had on that. And I think Bill Pollock may join us at some point during the meeting. So, you know, we have a lot of people that, oh, yeah, it's great. Okay. Hi, Bill. Nice to see you again. Bill is one of our original members of the committee as well. You know, it's great to see a lot of the members of the public come out. A lot of people have been mentioning, of course, the issues to deal with pedestrian safety. I mean, I think that's probably the most important thing that's come up in the last few weeks. Bill Hurley, of course, has been extremely supportive of the town engineer with, and as well as Santina, with trying to do some projects that will help improve these areas. And as I mentioned to the people that I talked to over the course of the month, it's so important that we do have support from the residents of an area that would like to see changes, because without the support, it really doesn't move to the next step. That's, you know, the kind of our committee has been in support of a lot of these things, but if we don't really have buy-in from the community and the residents that live in these areas, it will not happen. So I think with that, I wanted to turn it over to Judith. She's one of the first people on the agenda, and Judith had sent me an email about the Pequot Avenue Study Group. And I'll just turn it over to you, Judith.
Okay. Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well,
yep.
Yes. Okay.
One thing,
Thank
just
you
state your name and your address for our minutes as well.
Yeah, Judy Proctor, 428 Pequot Avenue in downtown Southport. And thank you for including us. We, you know, many know, and I know your group knows, that Pequot Avenue, especially the section closer to the beach, has been much loved and used over the summer, spring, fall months. And we all here in Southport are concerned with the congestion and speeding cars, and that's certainly a recipe for vulnerable road users to be hurt. So we have a coalition of two community groups here in Southport, the Sasquatch Association and the Conservancy. Members from both those groups are part of our study group, as well as folks who live along that stretch of Pequot Avenue. And so the stretch that we're particularly concerned about is where the sidewalk ends, which is at Banks Place, all the way down to the beach. And so what we anticipate doing, and I certainly want feedback, is coming up with, you know, whatever people think solutions could be. And then Bill Hurley coming to you to see what the town, you know, what your policy is and what could be achieved short term, long term, and then working with the Bike Pedestrian Committee as well as the police to figure out how we can best implement our suggestions. So I'm happy for feedback on, you know, other things we should be doing. And Bill, a sense of how best to get in contact with you, to have some sort of maybe conference call or Zoom, whatever you're comfortable with. I think he's on mute.
Yeah, I'm going to unmute you. I got you. Yeah. You're still muted, I think.
Now,
there you go.
here, okay. Yeah, I'll give you my phone number first of all. At the office, it's 203-256-3016, and my email is whurley, WHURLEY, at fairfieldct.org. And I just want to say a couple of things in terms of speeding and that kind of stuff. Every now and then, depending on his schedule, we do have Officer Wickman from the police department that comes to some of these meetings. The police department would be the one to get a hold of for any speeding or radar checks or speed limit signs, that kind of thing. The sidewalk requests and maybe some safety issues I could try to help you with. But Keith said something about it was important to get the community buy-in. I want about 10 or 15 years ago, the town at least was tinkering around with the idea of extending that sidewalk to Southport Beach. And there were two people in particular. One was extremely upset, where he was actually called me on the phone on, I'll always remember it, on Christmas Eve of all days. And he dropped a couple of curse words at me, saying that was the worst idea ever. I don't know if he's still in the area or not, or maybe he's moved on. But it's really important to have the community buy-in if we were going to do any sidewalk projects. Doesn't mean you have to have everybody, but obviously a good overwhelming majority, and then the ones maybe tolerating it can certainly help.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have yes, their property owners have changed, and also with the increased traffic, I think they're concerned as well. But we have other things on our list, such as repaving and painting those white lines where we would at least see boundaries for cars to stay within, and then conversely boundaries for walkers and runners and bikers, maybe not the whole 3 feet. We believe we cannot approach widening the road because the property lines, some of the property lines on the water side go all the way down to the road, and the easement seems only to be on the west side. So, but those were things maybe we wanted to go over with you to make sure we have correct information. We had things on our list like up by Fairfield Country Day on Bronson Road, they've purchased a permanent speed sign, and that's something, we could certainly entertain doing if we can figure out how to work with the town as to where to put it and things like that. So, but yes, we will, your suggestion about having, the whole group on board is a good one, and we certainly are moving in that direction. We've got a good group right now. So,
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Judith, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. I just had a couple questions, and I'm not being up in Stratfield. I'm not super familiar with Pequot Avenue, although I've certainly been to Southport Beach and been down there. And I read your email, and maybe Bill Hurley can help us with some of these things. You mentioned the speed limit, and I don't know, I guess the police can verify what in fact the speed limit is on that road, because you said there's signs that say it's 30 mph, but you believe it's 25 mph. And so I would love to find out officially, what it is designated. Was one of my questions. Bill Hurley, do you know what it happens to be for that road off the top of your head, or is that a question for the police?
Well, I can look that up. I have access to the speed limit, the inventory that the state has. And so I could look that up. I could check with the police, work with them as well. We can find that out fairly easily of what it's supposed to be. The other thing I just wanted to mention real quick in the interest of time is if let's just say your group there has, say, 10 wants or desires of improvements. A lot of times, and Sarah knows this, and so do some other members of the bike and ped group, the best way usually to do it is you kind of tackle them a couple at a time and you chip away. And I always remember another proponent of the bike and ped group, she's now a state rep, Kristen McCarthy-Vahey. About 10, 15 years ago, she had a list of like 20 of them, and it was too overwhelming. And we decided to take 2 or 3 at a time. And at the end of like 5 years, I think she ended up with about 80% of them. So
Wow.
sometimes that's the best way to tackle them. The easy ones, you kind of go in, establish yourself. That's kind of what we did with the bike routes and some of the signs. And then you kind of, build upon that. But definitely having support is one thing, and then also funding. And in terms of funding, in our waterfall chart, which is for a couple of years away, though, I'm going to try to ask for like $200 or $300,000 for sidewalk repairs and a couple of new locations for sidewalks. And then also, I think it's this year, coming up in maybe February or March, would be for safety improvements, townwide safety improvements, whether it be for traffic lights or for maybe redesigning or narrowing some intersections or things like that. So having a couple of examples or having the support will definitely help try to implement that or at least get things started. So we could definitely continue the conversation in the next weeks or whatever. So thank you.
Okay.
I just had one more.
Sarah,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I just wanted to get back to you. The speed limit is 30 miles an hour in Westport, and then it changes to 25 miles an hour as you enter Southport.
Oh,
So one of our thoughts was to put a stop sign up as there's an intersection right there between Westport and Southport. So we do have a laundry list of a bunch of different items. So.
Okay. And thank you very much.
Okay.
And I think, Sarah, we're going to hold off on some questions because I do want to keep.
One. Yeah, I know. I don't want to take up, but one question. Is there someplace we can find sort of a list of crashes, incidents? I'm a data person.
Yes, we can get that information for you.
Okay.
there's Yukon tracks that. There's a Yukon crash data site where you can look up any road in the state and it'll give it back several years, right, Bill? It's like
Yeah. I think they go back to at least 2015 now. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. A Yukon crash list. Okay.
Excellent. And feel free, if you want to put some questions in the chat as we're talking, I do want to just make sure we get through everybody because we have a lot of people on the agenda tonight. And so the next person, I think Patrick, is that you? That is you. Patrick is here. He had sent me an email. Actually, no, he sent me a letter, a paper letter, which arrived in my mailbox, and I was scared, actually, because I just finished watching Manhunt Unabomber, so I'm like, uh-oh, I better watch out. I haven't received an actual letter from a member of the public as the Bike Pedestrian Committee ever. So anyways, Patrick, I wanted to give you the floor a little bit, and you had some comments on the Old Post Road area. And then Ann Caddis, I think maybe this will be very similar to the letter that you had sent me as well. So we'll kind of combine these two together. So I'll turn it over to you, Patrick.
Thanks so much, Keith. Yeah, and thank you for that introduction. Definitely a firm believer in the postal service here.
Well, one thing, just please, you could say your name and your address. So we just need to put that in our minutes.
Totally. Yep, it's Patrick O'Brien Sevilla and 1168 Oldfield Road, Fairfield. And so just to kind of jump off of what you were saying, and similar to Judith, I'm kind of concerned lately about the traffic on Old Post Road and Oldfield Road, as well as Reef Road. Judith, to your point, I used the Yukon Connecticut Crash Data Repository to do some data mining, especially after the most recent incidents where pedestrians have been struck on Old Post Road and Reef Road. So definitely pretty concerned. My husband and I recently moved to Fairfield and love, obviously walking around and getting some exercise that way. And so have noticed that traffic tends to go far above the 25 mile per hour posted speed limit on Old Post Road and Oldfield Road and Reef Road. And so really just concerned about the situation, especially after Donna Schmidt was seriously injured back in November, and then the latest incident on Reef Road just last weekend. Obviously, some things can be done in terms of raising awareness with the public on just how to walk safely and kind of use some infrastructure improvements that this committee could potentially help pass on to town hall and enact kind of including making crosswalks more clear and visible, especially at night, with additional lighting, more reflective signs around crosswalks, posting speed limit signs, updating them so that they are reflective and so that they're a little more frequent. I think just my personal observation is once you're on Old Post Road and you're traveling, down it and where it turns into Oldfield Road, you don't really encounter a speed limit sign very often, considering how many streets empty onto that thoroughfare from the Post Road. So I just think folks might not be aware that, they've transitioned off of a road that's more major to a road that's 25 mile per hour speed limit. And in the data mining, found out that, of Fairfield's over 900 streets, the 16 or the 10 rather, top most dangerous streets are Old Post Road, Reef Road, and Unquoa Road. When you look at the 367 pedestrians that have sustained injuries and 13 pedestrians that have died in Fairfield since 1995, it's kind of concerning that that 10 roads account for 61% of the accidents. And of those 10 roads, Old Post, Reef Road, and Unquoa Road are in the top 10, along with roads that are obviously major thoroughfares like Route 1 and some of the other major routes through town. So it's just concerning that if there's a trend, with 61% of incidents happening on 10 roads, I'm wondering what we can do on those 10 roads to prioritize them, to improve signage, to improve awareness of pedestrians walking on those roads, and really to focus on making sure that everyone's safe in town. So that's kind of my spiel. I'm happy to elaborate.
I think some of the ideas that you did put in the message, I did send it out to everybody in the committee as well. I think with this, Ann, I'll maybe turn it over to you, and maybe if you had a few comments as well, because I know there are some residents in that area that have some concerns too. Yep. Getting closer. We can see you.
Potentially while Ann
Hello.
figures out. Oh, there you go. Okay.
There we go.
Go ahead if you want to say something else. It's fine.
I was just going to say that I thought some of the ideas weren't necessarily around just infrastructure, but really using like the town alert system that we've obviously all experienced for the snowfall this week. Kind of use that to remind more people about wearing visible clothing and using flashlights at night, and then relying on some of the other marketing tools that the town has, like the public library list and the park and recreation beach and town pass email list, to email resources out to more people in town and really ask our university partners at Fairfield and Sacred Heart to educate their students, who a lot of them obviously live in the beach community and travel down Reef Road and on Old Post Road to get to their rental properties, to just encourage them all to drive more safely and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Patrick, I was really happy to see your letter. I live on Old Post right near the library, and since Donna was struck, there's been a kind of resurgence of us all, my neighbors, and trying to figure out like how to approach the town. I've lived here for about 5 years, and I've called the police, I don't know how many times, just to complain about speeding and ask for help in enforcement of the existing traffic laws. And I think all of us have. And so whenever the accident happened, a lot of people who just knew that I was on this committee contacted me like, we got to do something, kind of, getting the group back together type of thing. And so, just, you know, based on like what Bill was saying and what Keith was saying, just how you have to have like a consensus behind you. I've been really trying to figure out like what the cheapest and fastest things that we can do to ask for first. Um, so my letter was signed by, I think, about 15 different neighbors, just to the town asking for the enforcement piece, help with the enforcement piece. Um, but behind the scenes, I've been trying also to figure out like what should be like Bill was saying, you know, put a list together, but you know, kind of chip away at the first couple of things. And my initial idea was to possibly ask for either paint bump outs or like temporary like sawhorse bump outs at some of the crosswalks, particularly like the old post where the Y is, and Beach Road, and see if those can aid in any of the safety issues, because I cross that a lot and it's just so wide and dark that you feel very vulnerable when you're in the middle. And I feel like people who are driving on it, it feels so wide and open that they don't realize that there are pedestrians coming often. So they're just kind of like sliding through the stop signs. And but I'd love to get together with you and try and figure out, you know, maybe even widen the neighborhood, because I'm just working with like the Old Post Road Association, and maybe kind of widen the neighborhood and see if there's things we can do to bring to the police commission now and request different small changes that we can get, and then also think about it here in terms of different complete streets ideas, like as different grant opportunities come up to try and get some other changes going.
Thank you. And I think Anne and everybody on the call, one of the things that I would really like to implement with the committee is, you know, we do have some smaller working groups and things like that, but it would be good to have a small working group, and I think maybe Anne, maybe Sarah as well, since you've been part of this, and anybody else that would like to join, maybe 3 to 4 people max, because I think any larger than that, it gets a little bit unwieldy, but to kind of work on several of these projects as they come in, because there are members of the public that are requesting them. If we can, you know, again, Wilson Street is one of them. We have Pequot Avenue. We now have Old Post Road, Oldfield Road. And again, if there's one smaller group that's kind of working on all of them that can coordinate, you know, the asks and also the communication with Bill Hurley and the other people that need to know, the health department or whoever, I think that's going to be the most effective and probably the thing that's going to lead us to have some success. So, I mean, I'm kind of asking if Anne, I know Anne and Sarah, you guys have both been involved in this. We do have other members of the committee that have been on for a while. If there's anybody that wants to step up to the plate and would like to be part of this, just please let us know.
I'll do it.
Thank you. Anne, is that good?
Yeah,
Or
sure.
Please.
I was just going to ask Patrick, did your email on that letter? I don't remember. Or I can.
It should be on the PDF that was sent toward the top there. And I don't know if the committee, Keith, that you're proposing is if a member of the public is allowed to join it, but I would love to participate if that is possible.
I mean, from a committee standpoint, like it wouldn't be part of the committee, but any member of the public is more than welcome to, you know, to work with the group. And, you know, again, we always have people that are coming and going from the committee as well. But, you know, these things happen quite a bit. So any assistance, you know, and having a key point, you know, of, you know, within your neighborhood is essential. And Judith, the same thing for you. If there's a key point person that we can connect with, you know, you can then, of course, work with the people within the neighborhood, making sure that you're the liaison between the two. That's going to be what's going to be most effective. Any larger the groups can get a little bit, it can get like unwieldy. But and we want to see some actual results. You know, there are things that we can do in the short term. Now, Bill, I don't even know if this would work or not, but you know, we do have that Old Post Road, for example, is part of our bike route that's been approved by the police commission. We could put the proposal to put the white lines, you know, the fog lines under to kind of narrow the road itself. I know we've talked about that many, many times, and it's been one of those things that was always the residents may not like it. Well, it seems like there's a very clear shift in that.
Oh yeah, very clear, very clear.
Yeah, Keith, I
Anne,
think I was gonna say, if you wanted to strike for that, now would probably be the time.
Yeah,
because as I said, there's been significant opposition to that. and I'm talking about, 10 years ago and maybe even 2 or 3 years ago. But maybe now would be the time to try to do that. And then the other things, and it kind of goes in the same way. Perhaps the town could install larger stop signs, or pay more
The ones with
additional
the red
pavement
bars on
markings,
them.
things like that. And then or reflective stripes. I think we did add a street light or made it more powerful at Old Field and Old Post, but we can look at the others as well. I have not seen, just to let you know anyway, in the last week or two, I have received one letter, but it was actually for RRFDs, the crosswalk flashing by somebody on, they wanted them all over Old Post Road and Old Field Road. But I have not seen Ann's or Patrick's letters or concerns. So if you guys want to send them to me, it might at least give me a little heads up. Hopefully, if they're to the first select woman or to the police, they do share them with me. But sometimes or DPW, sometimes they don't. So if you want to send them to me, at least I will take a look at them and investigate some ideas.
Yeah, I'm working on
Thanks, Bill.
getting like the neighborhood together to then approach, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want you to
Yep.
do any work before I know people want to do it. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
All right. That's a good approach, Ann.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good approach.
And I think, Bill, the attachments to the meeting announcement did have a copy of Patrick's and Judith's letter. I did not have Ann's at the time. So, Amanda, Ann, you want to send that separately?
All right, I'll check those attachments. I did not, since I had it on my phone, I clicked on the phone, I didn't get the attachments. So, all right, I'll check that. Thank you, Keith.
But yeah, but please, Judith and Patrick, please just definitely send that on as individually to Bill, so it ends up in his email box. And then I think let's see, Sarah, I think you're on the docket next for the Churchill Road, Wilson, and Fairfield Woods Road intersection. I think Bill Pollock might be here as well, so I'll turn that over to you guys.
Sure. Bill, are you there?
I'm here. I don't know if anyone can hear me.
I can hear you. It's nice to hear your voice.
Okay, great. Thank you. Nice to hear you too.
Yeah, so I brought this, this has been a discussion probably for a long time, but we really started getting into it last January, and Bill Pollock and Bill Hurley and I have looked at it closely, and I brought it up to Keith to the fact that, and I think we're going to talk about this later, the Four Corners project is right in the vicinity of the Fairfield Woods, Churchill, Wilson Street intersection, which, if you're familiar with it, has so many issues, I don't even know where to start. Churchill is extremely wide. The sidewalks and the entrances from the sidewalks down to the road are not ADA compliant. There's a history of crashes and near misses in that intersection because the roads, they're not a T, they're all off, at weird angles. So because the Four Corners project is happening, in the next 12 to 18 months, most likely, it's going to be a huge improvement to that area in terms of hopefully traffic flow, accessibility via walking and biking, and hopefully be an economic boost for the commercial businesses right in the Four Corners. That intersection is a huge connection point. And it's dangerous. And so Bill Pollock and I have been talking about perhaps making that one of our next priorities for Wilson Street is correcting where we can that intersection, the issues there, because it's bad. And Bill, I don't know if you want to speak, Bill Pollock, if you want to speak technically on, some of the things we've talked about with it.
Sure, I'd be glad to. Thanks, Sarah. My name is Bill Pollock at 49 Newman Place. Right around the corner from that intersection, and as Sarah mentioned, we've looked at the whole of Wilson Street, and it's a key intersection right adjacent to the Four Corners project, which is Fairfield Woods, Wilson, and Stratfield Road. And so, just to reiterate, as Sarah said, that this is a key point from the Stratfield neighborhood that's going to be making their way towards that intersection. And it feels a little bit as it has been left over. As I understand it, that intersection was actually way back in the day where the trolley used to turn around. Apparently, when the trolley used to come up from Bridgeport, it would use this area to turn around, and so it's basically a vast expanse of pavement with there's only four. It's a four kind of point intersection, but they're askew, and so you end up with a really large crossing. I know in the past, from what we've heard, work has been done to try to make it a little safer. They've moved stop bars around and tried to help it out. But I think the one major issue is the length of pavement for crossings for pedestrians. It's confusing when you're in a car, no matter which way you're traveling, frankly, because you don't know what one of the other cars at one of the stop signs is going to do. They're so far away, everyone kind of hesitates for a bit. And then when you're a pedestrian or a bicyclist, it's a little dangerous, frankly, at times, because there could be 70 feet, 80 feet in a couple spots there to actually just try to cross a 2-lane road. They're all 2-lane roads. So Sarah and I have identified that for sure as a important part of the neighborhood to look at, and I believe there are some improvements that can be done. The SVA, the Stratford Village Association, is basically 100% behind these improvements. They're obviously working very closely with the town and the state on the Four Corners, and they've identified this intersection as a key point from hearing from the community. I'll say that we know Sarah knows very well that the neighborhood is very active and interested in improvements on Wilson Street, and this intersection has been identified as a key intersection for sure. So I think what we're considering, what we'd love to see is the town and be interested in making improvements for these crossings. We'd love to have the bike ped support for sure. I think there are some bump outs that could perhaps be done. We've tossed around the idea of a rotary that would have to obviously be studied out because of the unusual angles that these roads come in. Sometimes a rotary can work, maybe it doesn't, but I think it needs some technical study. And Sarah and I are glad to, or at least we've talked about looking at that. I'm glad to, put a piece of trace on it and see what I can come up with as well. But I'd love to work with the town and Bill and see how that might turn out. But I think overall, this is a key intersection in the Stratfield neighborhood, adjacent to the Four Corners, and seems like a logical step in the Wilson Street improvements.
Okay, Bill, thanks. I off the top of my head, the rotary, or what they call them, roundabouts, we can kind of look at that. I just haven't had a chance to take a closer look. When I did drive out there the last time, I did realize, there's got to be a way to narrow that intersection. If the intersection or the safety improvements, that might be part of this, this location might be one of those examples, because something significant would cost a lot of money, or at least significant money. There are some things, though, I think DPW just hasn't gotten around to. We were looking at the red stripes for what we call the post delineators. And then I think in the springtime, I would think they were going to if they haven't done it last month, new stop bars and things like that. And perhaps even, although they don't like doing it, and if the police can have some data to back up that people are blowing through the stop signs, or there's a high number of crashes, maybe I can convince them to print the word stop before the stop sign, or at least put a stop ahead. As part of that Santina's grant, I think we did purchase 4 stop ahead signs. So I just don't think DPW's gotten to putting them up. But we're, again, chipping away at that intersection. So just wanted to give you an update on that. Thank you.
Sure. No, thank you, Bill. I know you've been working closely with us. We appreciate it very much. And I do think some bump outs in the right spot could go a long way, especially with Churchill is a very wide road, and people park on the road, which is fine, but I think it can accommodate the parking and the bump out to lessen that crosswalk, particularly traveling on Wilson, that crosswalk across Churchill. Seems like what you might call low-hanging fruit. We can look at, if we could look at a bump out or something like that. Like you said, if the roundabout is not feasible, then, but I guess my question would be, what would be the step in the design phase? Does the town do that internally? Is it something that might get sent out? I mean, like I said, I'd be happy to look at it myself as well with you, Bill, or whatever really makes the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, we could try to do it in-house. If it gets to be something that's too complicated or we don't have the manpower for it, it's possible we could send it out. The town is looking at possibly having, it's still a couple of months away at least, just an auxiliary engineer on call or something like that, whether it be for environmental, civil, or structural. If we have someone we can call and we have a budget to work with on that, then that's one of the ways that we could do it. Certainly feel free to do the layout. There's mini roundabouts, and then there's the larger ones. The ones that the state's been putting in, they're pretty large, and they require a lot of right of way. And that's my biggest fear is the way, like you said, the way that they're skewed. We have to try to get them to be across from each other, I think. And I have a feeling it's more like an oblong, if you know what I mean, rather than a nice roundabout or circle. But that was on our list to at least take a glance at to see if it's even possible. Hopefully we can do it this winter.
That would be great. And I think, I can't remember their last name, but Pat and Pete's house it would be the southern corner where Churchill and Wilson Street meet. That if we could bring that corner, like have it go further north, it would help align the intersection better, because it's a very wide radius for turning, and it's just not necessary to have that. And it's very dangerous. Pat and Pete at the meeting in January, talked about witnessing so many issues there. So tightening that up would I mean, maybe a roundabout will be the best solution, but it's making the intersection tighter might be effective as well.
Yeah, it would be a lot cheaper. And again, the bump outs, if it involves a long alignment, then even Bill's ideas of bump outs sometimes are cheaper, especially if there's parking issues or whatever. The long alignment or and I say long, it might only be 100 or 200 feet. But then at least you don't hear the crying of snow plows and all that with bump outs. So we can look at 2 or 3 different options to see what the neighborhood, what DPW, what the police department, what this group, and the funding and how much each one costs. Obviously, the more tools you have in the toolbox, so to speak, the better chances you have of getting something implemented.
Sure.
Great. Thank you very much. I was going to keep everything moving. Bill, I think you're up actually next on the list about the town engineering update. So this is always a good place to let you speak. And I think Santina is here as well. You'll be next, Santina, if you are here. I see your name, but not your face.
I'll just make it quick. I don't know if I made the announcement last time or not, but the town has selected Malone and I want to make sure it's right. Malone and McBroom for the Grassmere Post pedestrian improvements or neighborhood improvements. So we're going to be working, on that grant. And other than that, the connectivity grant in Southport is still moving along. Sarah and Bill mentioned the Stratfield Four Corners. We had our public meetings on both of them, and we're working to see if we can at least improve some of the, every comment has been looked at. And now we're just looking at ones that we can incorporate and which ones we have to contact the state with and which ones, unfortunately, we may or may not be able to implement. But we are looking at each one, and those grants are moving forward with design. They're about, probably both of them are in the 50 to 60% completion. So if I forgot anything else, feel free to remind me. But I think that's
Okay,
good for
great.
me. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Laura had a comment.
Yeah, I know Karen Seacrest put together our comments on that Four Corners intersection. I assume they were submitted. Are they amongst the recommendations that are being looked at, or did that not happen?
Oh no, those are the ones. Yeah, they're a part of the official record in the meeting, and I responded on certain ones. I said I checked with the consultant, and he's looked at some of them. And I guess what I will ask him is to, give us a formal reply or when he hears back from the state. And we also had to check with SVA as well. I know one of the, we were at a little bit of a sticking point of the SVA wants the gateway or the median in the approach as you go southbound on Route 59 there, Stratfield Road, before you get to the Four Corners. And by doing that median, that does take away from some of the what we call bike lane or buffer there. And so we're going back and forth on if there's a way to shorten it or do something with it, where if it's maybe only the first 50 or 100 feet of the intersection where cars are stopped or queuing, maybe that's something that's still allowed. But I know that's a little bit of, that's really the only thing that I think we all, in terms of opinions, kind of they have a disagreement with, if you know what I mean.
I do. It's a very attractive addition. Unfortunately, it could make for unsafe bike travel.
And again, that's where we have to weigh what they want, the town, what the state would allow. And as I said, we'll try to figure things out. Obviously, if you made the median too narrow, then that loses that impact. And we'll, as I said, we'll have to, I know we've taken at least an initial look at it, and he's aware of it. That's the one that, as I said, so far has been a big hanging, a contention. The other one where we were, it was a spot that was only like 2 foot wide, but it was just a small spot, kind of near where Bill lives, Bill Pollock, from Newman and that alignment there to the other. We think on that side of the road, we can make what SVA wants, what I think the state wants, and what those comments were to maintain a good 4 or like very close to 4 foot shoulder, or we'll call it bike route shoulder. So we're confident on that side of the road to make everything work. So that was something that they are incorporating, I believe, when they finalize the plan.
Well, given that the state has a complete streets policy and the town has a complete streets policy, I would be really upset if the design of this did not allow for safe bicycle travel. It's against both policies if it doesn't. So that should be a really strong point to get through to that.
Right. The other one was the crosswalk distance, and when you do the bulb outs, that unfortunately takes away from some of the bike space. But the consultant's aware of that. He's trying to, as I said, on the north side, I know he can do it. The south side, he's still looking at. And I know Bill's plan, he's taking a look at that as well. So we are still trying to progress forward and incorporate, as I said, as many of the comments that were given.
I certainly wish, and if this is something we never have, I certainly wish if we knew how much bicycle traffic there was in that area. I've seen a lot, I know it's substantial, but I can't begin to quantify it. But
The only
you know.
thing, Keith, you had mentioned one time of a bike app or something like that. I think that has maybe some volumes or something.
Yeah, actually,
It's
Nate
for people
mentioned
who use
Strava.
it.
You can see those are people that are like doing exercise. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely traffic on there. All right, so Bill, anybody have other comments for Bill? I always like to dismiss him early so he continues to come to our meetings.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. And if anyone has any questions, you can always email, give me a call. I will hang around just to hear what Santina has to say as well.
Wonderful. And of course, Santina, you as well. Thank you so much for coming to our meetings. And, you know, I always say this, but I know the health department is not very busy in these days. So I appreciate your time.
Thanks. Yeah, not busy at all. Not like a global pandemic and a new vaccine coming out or anything. So I apologize. I haven't really done too much as far as like pet stuff.
Understood.
Which I guess is my 2020 quote for this group. But we do have our grant, the year 2, that did start October 1. I obviously am hearing lots of ideas. So maybe Bill, this week or next week, or maybe after the new year, you and I can connect and I can tell you exactly how much the money is and kind of what projects we think we can fund, and then take it to the group, because I'd like to have a definite plan by like March or April. So this way I can also let the state know what project we're going to be working on. And that's usually about like $9,000 to $10,000. And then the other thing is I was contacted by Parks and Rec, Galen Brown. She is writing a grant for the People's for Bike grant. And so she was asking me some things that we've done. I don't know, and I apologize because to say it's crazy at work is an understatement. So I just forward her like my grant reports and some pictures and some like write-ups that I've done on our projects. I will email her right now to see what kind of project Parks and Rec was thinking, and maybe Keith, I'll connect her to you, and see, if there's anything that you guys can provide or help or, anything like that. We have, the health department did apply for this grant twice. We applied for it in 2015 and 2017, and it was denied both times. It's really competitive and it's not that much money, but it's extremely competitive. So I will do that right now. I apologize that I've kind of dropped the ball on that. And
okay.
I think that's it for health.
Thanks. And to that end, I just put in the chat box here. I've been taking kind of like a list of projects or things like that have been coming to us. And it would be great if I can get individuals within the group to be kind of the lead on that. Whether it's the Pequot Avenue Study Group. Again, sometimes there'll be a few people. I think maybe like Ann and Sarah, with these two on the top. But somebody to be the liaison with Emmeline for the POCD. Somebody would like to be the liaison for the Police Commission, Parks and Rec, as Santina just mentioned. We do have Karen that's working with the Forestry Committee, Linda, the Sustainability Committee. So, I'm putting those out there. And please, it's kind of like one of those things when you're in class, if nobody raises their hand, the teacher will have to pick some people. So if there is something, and there's things that you're interested in, and this is not an extensive list. I mean, these are just things that have come up in the last few weeks or so. Anne.
I just had a question for Santina, because I was talking to Jill Vergara, one of the RTM members, and saying, because I remember in last meeting, there was a suggestion that ideas for a grant should come from the RTM members. Is that what you're looking for this grant?
No.
Okay.
No. So the ideas for our grants usually come out of here. So
okay.
It's kind of driven by, the health department will say, we kind of want to focus on bike routes, which is what we've done in the last few years. And, this grant, we kind of want to do the pedestrian.
Right.
And that's where Sarah, that's when we did the Wilson Street. So Sarah had communicated with me and, Bill and I kind of talked and I said, could we complete this project with our grant amounts? And he said yes. And then I don't know if you remember, like there was like an informal kind of vote with like PED to like support the idea. So that's the kind of stuff that we're looking for. It doesn't have to go through RTM.
Right. I guess I thought maybe it was discussion of a different grant then. I thought that there was some talk of maybe like RTM members had heard from people in their area and they had, I don't know, if that's not what you're talking about, then that's not what you're talking about. I must have misunderstood something then. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you.
No.
Yeah, and just to let you know on that, they might be referring to, again, some of these bigger grants, like the lot SIP, and then sometimes they have transportation alternates programs. These are usually at least $500,000 to, $2 million grants. From that Black Rock Turnpike study, we're going to be applying for a grant. The new DPW director said, yeah, we should apply for that one. So we're going to be applying for that one as well, and working with MetroCog. And certainly anytime it's a competitive grant, having the support of the RTM, or if they have any ideas, it's always, we're listening, So.
Okay, so maybe then that's what you were talking. Maybe that's what I was thinking of. Yeah. Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, very good. And thanks. I think I will cut out. Thank you very much. And if anything happens,
thank you guys, and thank you, Santina, as well.
Thank you. Sure. Bye. Now.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. All right. Thank you, everybody. All right. So we're just moving on. We don't have Officer Wickman here today. So, Sarah, we already had you do a short introduction, but you did send me an email with some ideas and some future things. So I figured I would turn it over to you for that now.
Oh, sure. So I did send you an email last week, I guess, talking about this, partly in response to some of the communication we've gotten in regards to pedestrian cars crashing into pedestrians and the dangers with that. One of the things I brought up to Keith was, and I think Kristen brought this up, Kristen McCarthy-Vahey brought this up in November, was that there should be a bill going forward at the state legislature that will propose taking the speed limit decision-making power out of the state's hands for non-state roads and putting it into municipal hands. And so one of my questions to Keith was, and I personally, privately will be seeking support for that from my neighborhood because you may or may not know, we tried to reduce the speed limit on Wilson Street and the state denied our request despite having 93 neighbors sign it. It was approved by the Fairfield Police Commission. It was a very reasonable request to go from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour, and they denied it. And their decision had no consideration of pedestrian or cyclist needs. It was really all about how fast do they feel it's safe for cars to go, no consideration of the density of the neighborhood. But anyway, so my question, and Keith, maybe you can speak to this, is are we as a committee allowed to advocate for that type of legislation? Do we have a role to play in trying to push that to happen? It's happened in nearby states. I know New York passed a law like this not that long ago, Massachusetts. Slowly throughout the country, states are coming around. Decisions belong in local hands now. And so I'm just wondering what we can do to support that, because I think helping to reduce speed limits where we can in our town supports our mission here and our work.
Keith, if I could interject here, can you hear me? Yeah, I sent Kristen an email a week or so ago asking her when would be the appropriate time for comment on this, because I thought there were a number of items, and she said when it's open for comment.
Okay.
And she said she would keep me apprised, but it's not at the stage. They do their, making a mess out of the the various suggestions into some form of a law first. So you can't comment on something that's not a proposed law. They are talking about it.
Oh, good. Oh, well, I just was wondering, if we can comment. They started last January. They had opened it up to discussion because Bill Pollock sent a letter. I sent a letter. A bunch of people sent a letter, and then the pandemic hit, and they never actually were able to move forward with, because they really felt confident that they could pass it last year, but it died because of
Yeah, she said it's just not time yet. But I don't know what's, and this is maybe Keith can answer. I don't know what's stronger. All of us individually send comments. Some of us go up to Hartford and comment. We could go up as a group as comment. I don't know if we do it as a committee, if that's any more or less strong. Somehow numbers seem to me to be more impactful, but I don't know. And Kristen could probably answer that when the time comes.
Yeah, and I think that, definitely the more comments, the better. As a committee, just to kind of put it in a framework of what we can and can't do, we basically could do anything. However, we need to have the committee, vote on it. And so, I'll give you an example of a few years ago with the Merritt Parkway Trail idea. I mean, this was right as our committee started. There was discussion: do we support this as a committee? If individuals wanted to support it or not support it individually, they definitely could do that. That's within everybody's rights. But if it's a committee decision, then we usually have to put it to a vote. And we do vote on it, and then we move forward with it. So that's basically, we really can do what we would like. It just takes somebody to propose what the thing is that we want to do, and then the rest of us vote on it. So, yeah. And I mean, again, lowering speed limits or having at least the right to say where speed limits should be lowered, I do think that is part of what our committee would do. I mean, and just seeing the members of the public that have joined tonight, of the 2 or 3 that people have presented to us, they've both said this is one of the things that we would like to do. So it's not, it's not something completely outlandish. And I think that's to the point that that's how we're going to move forward.
Okay.
All right, great. The other thing, this will probably be kind of quick, was, I did send out the the original bike and pedestrian master plan. I just emailed that. Thank you, Ann, for reminding me about that. It is kind of hard sometimes to keep track of everything within work and life and bike ped stuff to keep it all straight. But that is definitely something, we'll talk about that in just a minute, but I think that it is worth taking a look at least, and seeing, is this something that we want to spend some time and effort in updating, or if not updating, at least going through it and picking out projects, ideas, concepts that were from that, and making sure that we've noted, hey, these are things that we actually did. The plan is about almost 10 years old now. Here's things that we've actually done. Here's things that we would like to do, and here's things that are going to still have to be moved towards the future. So that is going to be one of the other kind of assignments that, we're going to be talking about in a little bit. So before we do that, though, I do want to just keep going through the agenda. Next up would be outreach to other committees and town offices and the assignments. I'm going to do that at the very end. And have sustainability. Linda, and I know Mary Hogue is here as well. Maybe just pop in and give us your comments about things that happened at the Sustainability Committee meeting and any connections to the bike ped.
So just a quick update on that. Mary and Bob Wall were very gracious about spending a lot of time with me on December 3rd, bringing me up to speed on the activities of the Sustainable Fairfield Task Force. And I was so impressed with the breadth of what this task force does. So I'm really looking forward to outreach with them. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend their first meeting on December 9th. And I think the main thing that came out of it, and Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, is the issue of the recertification for Sustainable Connecticut in 2021, which will be a very big initiative, and our committee can play a role in that. Mary, anything else that you want to add? I think you're on mute.
The only other thing to point out is we have our sustainability plan on the website, on our website, which is sustainablefairfield.org. So you can take a look, and you're highly up there with your complete streets, and you'll see you're up there. So thank you very much for all the hard work you do.
Thank you, Mary. I know you've been waiting for a long time to talk as well.
No, not really. I'm hiding.
But thank you very much also for spending the time with Linda. And Linda, thank you for connecting with them, because I think it's a great connection to continue with because both of our committees are doing things that are along the same lines. All right. So Forrest, I don't think Karen's here. Karen, you're not here, are you? Called in or anything?
No, I did spend an hour with Karen and the tree warden and got her up to speed, and we're happy to report that PURA. Do you guys know what PURA is?
I do.
PURA is a Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, and we're happy to report that they voted or they ruled that there was this very onerous tree trimming program that we've been fighting for 6 years. So power to the people. They voted in our favor to say that UI was not allowed to do what they were doing and so on and so forth. And to trim the roadside trees the way that they've been trimming them. In Fairfield, you wouldn't have noticed it because our tree warden is marvelous and other towns don't have a tree warden the way we have. But if you had gone to Orange or other towns, literally they were clear cutting a swath 20 feet wide around the pole, literally ground to sky, and clear cutting around the towns. So throughout the state. So this is no longer allowed throughout the state. So this is really very good news for a complete street kind of concept of having roadside trees. So Marissa Gillette is the new chair of PURA, and you'll be seeing a lot more very positive things along the lines of for ratepayers. There's a very positive ruling for ratepayers as well. So there's going to be a lot of positive things related to PURA. So if you can get anything into PURA, if you can, get it in front of Marissa Gillette. What else did we talk about? Nothing else related to forestry on that front, but we're looking forward to having Karen come and join us.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that. The last thing on the agenda was the National Association of Realtors Placemaking Grant. And actually, Alyssa Israel passed this on to me. I did email everybody that was on the email, but I never got a response back. So just really quickly, it says the Level 1 Placemaking Grant, up to $1,500, funds demonstration and temporary projects to provide an opportunity to test the viability of long-range plans and investments, especially elements of downtown master or bike pedestrian plans and transportation initiatives that increase community livability and widen public engagement. Then they also have like parklets, pop-up parks, bike and walking events, bike corrals, pedestrian plazas, things like that. The Level 2 grant is up to $5,000, can be used for new parks, pocket parks, plazas, parklets, which I don't know what it is, alley activations, trails, dog parks, play fitness areas, and community gardens. So I, again, have not heard back from anybody at the Board of Realtors, but that will lead me into my kind of final thing for the evening is assignments and things that we can have people do in the next, the next month or even going into the future. So we do have the POCD, which for the life of me, I cannot remember the acronym. It's the, what is it? The Conservation and Development.
Plan of Conservation and Development.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate it. So that's part of the town. I would love to have somebody be the key liaison for that, somebody to be with the police and police commission, somebody with Parks and Rec, somebody for the Board of Realtors, and somebody that would like to look at the bike and pedestrian master plan and take a look at that and kind of go through it a bit critically and see what we've done and what we haven't done. So I will stop talking and then let all of you jump in and say what you want to do or put it in the chat or what have you, or make comments. Go ahead, Ann.
I would like to do either the POCD or actually I was planning on doing the review of the original bike and pedestrian plan. So if we're getting our choice, I would choose that.
You're the one who spoke first, so you get the bike ped master plan. Is that what you would like?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Can I just offer one?
There's other things on there too. So if there's other things that I didn't mention, let me know. Also, one of them was to connect with Krista McCarthy Bay, who is our state rep, or RTM members, or whatever it may be. So keep going. Anybody else?
Can I just offer one comment that the POCD is just for this 1 year? And then it's gone for 10 years. You get it's a 10-year window. So you speak now or forever hold your peace for 10 years. So it's very powerful.
When's the deadline of that?
Well, it's been on hold because they haven't been able to get the public comment. But Emmeline, and you get to work with Emmeline Harrigan, it's a real treat. So it's a real sell if you want to work with someone super rock star status. It's a real treat to work with her. It's a very powerful document, and it's a really important document for the town. So, but it gets redone every 10 years. So this is your window. So just to explain the context of how powerful it is.
Wonderful. Anyone?
Can anyone hear me?
I can hear
Keith,
somebody
it's
talking.
Mike.
Who's talking?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yes.
Keith, it's Mike. I do know Kristen McCarthy-Vahey through Scouts. I'd be happy to be a liaison with her.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Mike. And maybe a few other government members as well, like Tony Huang and people that have been active with our group and others that have not. So I'm going to put you on that.
Sure. Great.
Thank you.
Keith, I'd like the placemaking grant assignment.
Placemaking grant. Who is that? Is that Sarah?
Yeah. Is that that was the Realtor Association?
The Realtors. Yeah, the Board of Realtors. So that would be Sarah. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody? I was gonna. Nate's not here, so I was gonna maybe ask him to connect with the police and the police commission because I know him and Karen have done this a couple of times. So in his absence, I might put him on that one.
Keith,
yes.
You haven't mentioned anything with economic development because we've worked with them from time to time. I've got a relationship with Mark Hart.
Yeah, sure. Laura, would you like to do that?
Sure.
Thank you. Anybody for the anybody wanted to do the POCD?
I'll do it. I'll do some of it. You want to split it, or
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what that is, but
Jay, you there? Do you want to do anything? I see he's disappeared. He turned his camera off. He's like, it's like putting your head down in class. he's taking great notes as the secretary. There's a lot of work in that, I can tell you.
Yeah. He earlier said I think he earlier said he did want to do that, Keith.
Okay. I'm going to put Jay and Ann kind of together on that one. I do have Ann and Sarah kind of with some, and maybe even Laura, you as well, with some of these working, like the Pequot Avenue, Old Post Road, just because it's very complete streets stuff. So I might even just say like that's the Complete Streets Committee, if you will. And then Sarah, I'm not sure, it'd probably be a good kind of thing for you to kind of move into as well. They put together the Complete Streets Plan, but now this is going to be implementing some of that. So I might just say that, Ann, Sarah, Laura. Is anybody else on that? I mean, it was Bill Pollack, but. All right. Okay. I do believe, I think Nate and Karen were the only people that didn't give me their phone numbers and addresses, and Mike Allen. I'll just need to get that from you. It's in the Google Doc. I just have to get that to our town. And Judy, thank you very much. I just see our comment here. I do appreciate you coming to the meeting tonight and listening. And I think that's pretty much it for the end of the meeting. I'm just going to open it up to the rest of everybody here and see if there's any other comments.
I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
It was something I also brought up to you in the email, Keith, about looking at the letters we've received and the work I've done with trying to rally my neighborhood into caring about traffic and pedestrian safety issues. There's a lot of misunderstanding out there, and I had these misunderstandings too before I started researching this stuff. Like, a lot of people's gut reaction will be like, well, we need to install speed bumps, or we just need the police to be enforcing 24/7. But when you really look at the information and the data and the studies out there, it's about road design. Road design is the most effective way to change people's behavior when they drive or walk or bike, or one of the most, right? So what role do we play in helping to get that misinformation out of people's heads and get them to help guide them towards the better solutions, because we all know like speed humps, they're outdated. We can't use them in New England because of snow, that kind of thing. Like, and as much as I appreciate the intent behind enforcement, it's a short-term solution. It's not a long-term solution. What we really need is road design improvements to change people's behavior long-term. So that's something like, because when these things come up on time to time on like Moms of Fairfield Facebook page, that kind of thing, it's always the same old suggestions. So
that's why we did a complete streets policy.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it addresses. But you know, it's just about impossible to get people to fully understand and comprehend that. And then it's very hard to get funding to do all these road designs. So the quick fixes turn out to be things like more enforcement and little things like stop signs and bumps outs and crosswalks. So it's a combination of things that create this problem. If we had more money, we could do a lot more road redesign.
I think that one of the things that we can do, and we have done in the past, is kind of the education piece.
Yeah.
And making sure that we are getting the word out. And so one of the, we had done this in the years past as we were getting our bike routes approved and the complete streets policy, was to make sure that we were writing articles and they were going to the press, doing press releases, doing, even recently the first selectwoman has been putting her weekly newsletter, and we had the opportunity to put some of our success stories in there and do some safety tips for biking and walking. And if there, one of the things we could do is to author a piece that would be going out to the larger community to talk about, this is the better way to do things. And as, sometimes you kind of want to be careful what you wish for, because if you're starting to spread out there to the public saying, hey, bring us all of your complaints and we'll fix them, that's not going to happen, because we are just a volunteer committee. But, having people come to the meetings, having people communicate their concerns effectively to Bill Hurley and the rest of the town, and he can kind of run with it. That's always good. And I'll turn it over to you.
Just a quick thing too. I was going to say, I think that budget season is coming up for the RTM too. And, maybe it's part of education and trying to get people to contact their representatives and say like, more money needs to be allocated to these things, like sidewalks and other safety things, because it's really just an afterthought in the budget a lot of times, I think, for people. So that's part of the process too, is figuring out how we can get the money to do the redesign type of things that you're talking about.
Yeah, because when you really think about it, it's kind of wild that it's not a higher priority. Like it would never be acceptable for a road to just end and become like dirt and potholes, right? But we're okay with sidewalks just end. We're not okay with it, but like we will accept that a sidewalk just ends, right? And it's just not. It's a clear declaration of priorities, and so I think, I think we just need to get this more. And I was going to suggest that, Keith, that we have opportunities like Brenda's newsletter to put in some articles about. Because I've tried to do some clarification in my Facebook communications, like on Moms of Fairfield, when people bring up speed humps, be like, well, actually, that's an outdated technology, or talking about how narrowing roads encourages drivers to go more slowly, that kind of thing. But yeah, if there's opportunity to get little pieces into her newsletter and other things like that would be great.
Yeah, and we've worked on projects like that in the past. I think that kind of what Bill was saying is, I'm going to use the old Post Road as an example. There has been significant pushback, and he's brought this up multiple times. There's been pushback from the residents for doing anything to that road. And I think that's one of those things is like, if you keep asking and you keep getting said no, and keep asking and people keep saying no, it seems like now is the time where there is a kind of a groundswell of support for making some changes because of the fact that people are getting hit by cars and it's not safe. And many of the people have children that are going to be using those roads, and they're fairly unpredictable. as they're biking and walking around the streets, but, to have roads that are safer for everybody to use. That's the goal of our complete streets, and making sure that, we can implement some of these things. And I think, we talked about the fact that that is part of our bicycle route, and Santina does have a grant of money that needs to be spent. And very, very inexpensive is to put down those white lines that are kind of like the route type lines, get some additional signage, get some crosswalk paintings put in there, get some stop signs that have the red bars, I don't know what they're calling on the poles, that are much more reflective, possibly even a flashing, crosswalk sign, which I do not think will be approved in that type of an area where it's more historical. But again, if you ask for it, if you don't ask for it, it's not going to be approved. But, and here's a perfect example, because it's a very, very kind of visible area of the town where a lot of people will see. And then you can say, okay, we've done it here. Well, here's another area, Pequot Avenue. This is another area that could do it. Here's another area, Four Corners. This is, you're kind of spreading things around the town. Are there other places that you can do these things? And the answer will be yes. I was just even thinking of the traffic circle that's off exit 47. On the Merritt. And I was like, wow, that seems really kind of forward thinking for the town of Fairfield to put a traffic circle in. And I live kind of near that and work at Sacred Heart. And, I don't see that many issues with it. I know there's some complaints about it initially, but it's fine. Everybody seems to have figured it out.
I think a lot of times with this stuff, it's seeing is believing. Like once it's in there, there's a lot of fear of the unknown, and then once it gets in there, people are like, "This is amazing!" And we did our Wilson Street sidewalk project in September. Just last week, a neighbor was like, "Did you help with that sidewalk?" And oh my God, that's a game changer. I do feel. Of course, it's important to have community feedback, and you have to listen to fears and concerns. But so often it is, once it's in there and the reality of how much better it makes things, it makes people be like, well, at least internally, they're like, why did I ever question this?
Yeah, well, that actually brings up a good point, because that was one of the articles that we did want to present to the first select woman, is the kind of the success story of Wilson Street, the whole process, how it happened. And so again, you've been very intimately involved with that. If that's something you'd like to write up, we can discuss that at the next committee meeting, and then, get it to the newsletter, because it's really a win for everybody. I know Karen took some pictures, before and after pictures, but having the kind of the story and make that story so that it gets into people's minds that if I can gather everybody in my neighborhood and we can get, firmly in support of something, and then bring it to the town and bring it to the Bike Ped Committee, then we can, we need to have some projects that can be in the, the back burners, because as budgets come around, or as Bill gets a grant, or Santina gets a grant, they come to us every month saying, hey, it's $9,000. We got to spend it. How are we going to spend it? Like, these are good problems to have.
Great. Yeah, I
Sarah,
can write.
Sarah, I don't know if you've read our complete streets policy, but you should read it, because it requires that we look at all these things before any road is redone, any major work is done on it.
Yeah. Laura, I read it, and I've taken copious notes, but I must admit it's been a few months since I looked at it, so I should reread it and go through it again. Yep. But thank you.
All right. Well, I do have to say I'm pretty much at my limit. This is now going on hour 14 of my Zoom day, so I'm done. I'm gonna. Any other comments or things like that? We can do this. I'm gonna stop the recording. So maybe if we just have nothing else committee member, I can kind of call for a close of the meeting and stop the recording, and then we can just. Yeah, go ahead, Mary. Muted.
Motion to adjourn. This is Mike.
Mike, well, okay, Mary, did you want to make a comment? I'm sorry.
I put it in the chat. I just wanted to make a note, since you put it about state legislative stuff, that the legislative session starts on the 6th. And on the 19th, 21st, and the 25th is the summit, the annual environmental summit that the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters is having. And it's a very helpful thing for you to go to, because the legislators and the advocates are there. So if you want to get to meet people, to make alliances and collaborations, and meet your legislators to get your point across, to do whatever it was that you wanted to, push in the legislative session, that's a good place to go. And it's virtual, obviously. So something for you to think about.
Excellent, thank you. Mike did make a motion to adjourn. Does anybody want to second that?
Second.
Everybody's raising their hands, and Sarah, and all in favor?
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you, everybody. Stop.